All right, we can get started.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Shirdi Sai Society Trust organizing Simplified Bhagavad Gita by Dr. Janaki Santoke ji. Thank you joining Janaki ji. Dr. Janaki ji is a PhD in philosophy. She is a lecturer, author, corporate resources, and also a public speaker. She is a senior disciple of Swami A. Parthasarathi. For the past 35 years, she has been full-time in research and propagation of Vedanta. Thank you so much for joining today, Janaki ji. Please start ahead.
Hari, we need to play the video now, please. Once the video is played, Dr. Janaki will start.
Life today poses challenges at various levels. Modern day living is threatened by anxiety, depression, failure at work, climate change, and war. But is a life of peace and harmony with fast-paced progress possible or even conceivable? The answer, a resounding yes, lies in the ancient Indian philosophy of Vedanta. This pristine knowledge of life and living, as found in texts like the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, has answers to all human problems and is a pathway to the ultimate goal of human existence, God or self-realization. The Vedanta Wisdom Trust's mission is to educate humanity on this knowledge. Towards this end, it holds weekly online classes attended by learners from all over the world. The Trust's e-learning platform offers a number of self-paced certificate courses. Offline events include outstation retreats, seminars, public lectures, and workshops. Top professionals can learn and apply Vedantic knowledge in their fields through the Trust's corporate workshop services. The Trust's upcoming project, the Vedanta Wisdom University, will be the world's first university with a curriculum based on Vedanta. Along with education that provides a means of livelihood, it aims to empower its students to become tomorrow's leaders who can think creatively and advance humankind as a whole. Spearheading the Trust and its services is Dr. Janaki Santoke, a well-known proponent of Vedanta for over 3 decades now, a sought-after teacher of the subject and an author who writes for The Speaking Tree, The Economic Times, and more. Her first book, How Do You Know What You Know, examines thinking and its effects on life. Her new book, The Happiness Guarantee, The Philosophy of Happiness, delves into the foundational principles, exposing why our pursuit often leads astray. It uncovers the role of desire and helps master the mind for lasting joy. The Vedanta Wisdom Journal is a platform dedicated to spreading the timeless teachings of Vedanta and exploring their relevance in contemporary times. The journal publishes articles biannually. You can subscribe to receive access to these articles and also contribute your own work to be considered for publication. Janaki ji's social media presence continues to grow with the YouTube channel Team Janaki Santoke comprising a subscriber base of thousands across continents. To learn more, please visit Life today poses challenge.
We'll begin with a small prayer.
Kindly request those who are not speaking to mute yourself, please. Dr. Janaki is about to begin her speech.
We'll begin with a small prayer. Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunasttu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. You know, this prayer which we just chanted has been chanted before a Vedanta study session. Can you not hear? Is there a problem?
Oh, we can hear you, Ma. We can
Okay.
hear you.
Maybe you want to put on your headphones if the volume is low. I don't know what I can do further from here. So, this prayer which we just chanted has been chanted for the last, I don't know, 10,000 years before students have started the study of Vedanta. We come from a very, very ancient tradition. And the fact that it has continued so many years must speak something about its relevance to humanity. And that's what we're going to try and do today, is understand how the Bhagavad Gita is our everyday companion. It is not something that is our hobby or it is something we're interested in. It is something that is the light of our life. It's like having a torch. So, how is it going to be a torch in life? It is a very, very important thing for us to learn this knowledge, because this knowledge is what teaches us how to live life. And if that one piece of information we don't have, then no other information is going to give us the happiness, the fulfillment, the success, the productivity, the relationships, or anything else we're looking for. So the Bhagavad Gita, today we're going to do the simplified version. So let's see, what is the Bhagavad Gita? The Bhagavad Gita, as you probably know, is part of a much larger text known as the Mahabharata. It's just a small portion of this humongous thing. There's nothing bigger in this world, no literature bigger than this world, in this world, than the Mahabharata. It's almost 100,000 verses. So it's just a very small part, 700 verses of the Mahabharata. If you can
Madam, we can't hear your voice.
oh,
Yeah, it's very feeble.
I don't know, would it help if I put this in?
Actually, Janaki ji, we can hear properly. I think Ajay ji, could you please check your background or computer? We able to hear.
I can hear your voice clearly, but not Janaki ji's. That's my problem. Anyway,
What shall I do? I'll try to speak a little louder. Is that helping? Actually, I've come very close to the laptop in the hope
Yes,
that you
Janaki
can
is
hear.
speaking. Please speak up a little louder. That way we can compensate for any technical.
yeah, we
Okay.
can hear everybody's voice very clearly, but not Janaki ji's.
Well, if something is particularly soft, you please ask me and I'll repeat that. I don't know what else to do. Because it's important, right? The sound is important. I'm very used to hearing, oh, you speak so well. Only problem is I couldn't hear a thing. So let us avoid that sort of thing today. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about how we need to learn how to live. And if we learned how to live, then we would have everything in life. Now, the Gita teaches us. The Gita is a small portion of this much larger text known as the Mahabharata. And the Mahabharata is a story of a fratricidal war, a war between two sets of brothers, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And, people say, did the Mahabharata happen? Did we really go through such a war? That is not for us to say, that is for the historians to say. We are philosophers. We try and understand what is the significance of that text. We try to see the allegorical significance of this text so that we can improve our lives with it. Massive fratricidal war. And it begins, we just do portions of the first chapter. Oh my God, still louder? Okay. I'm so sorry about this. I don't know what else to do. Is this volume good? I'm now screaming. Is this volume good?
Yeah, looks like. With the earphone,
Okay,
yes. Okay, thank you.
So it's the fratricidal war between two sets of cousins. Now, we are not concerned with some two sets of cousins marrying to, sort of having a war so many thousands of years ago. So, main kya karu? What am I to do? You have your war if you want. But the point is not the war that they had then. The point is the war that is going on within our bosoms, within our mind and intellect. At this time today, there's a constant war. What is this war? The text shows us. It shows us how there is this massive fight going on in our own hearts between two sets of cousins, as it were, which is nothing but our good desires and our bad desires. And that's the setting of the Bhagavad Gita. That's where it starts. The first verse says this: Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamaka pandavaschaiva kima kurvata. Sanjaya, Dharma kshetre kurukshetre. What is this Dharma kshetre? Dharma kshetre means a field of piety, a field of dharma, a field of purity, which has now become Kurukshetra, a battlefield. What is this Dharmakshetra? This is the Dharmakshetra. Our own being is the Dharmakshetra. Why is it the Dharmakshetra? Because God lives here. And what have we made out of it? We've made a Kurukshetra out of it. A battlefield where there's a battle going on in our minds all the time. And why does this battle start? Why are we warring with ourselves? The text tells us, Mamaka Pandavaschaiva. Mamaka, mine, and the sons of Pandu. You see, this is the Indian culture and the Indian society. Why don't you all put on your videos so that I can see you, and we can have a conversation. We are a small group, so we can, I can see you whether you all are paying attention or seeing your phone, I can tell. So, why don't you put on your videos? I don't bite anyone. Okay. At least I can't do it on video, right? So, why is this battle on between in our own hearts? Because we see this division, mine and yours. And the moment the thought of mine comes, the problem starts. You see, this is the dichotomy in this in the Mahabharata itself. You see, it's a joint family, it's a one family, and yet Dhritarashtra refers to it as my children and those of Pandu. Actually, they're all children of the same family, isn't it? Now, why is Dhritarashtra saying that? 717336. Your hand is moving a little. It's a little distracting, I think, for everybody. Why is Dhritarashtra saying this? Who is Dhritarashtra? Dhritarashtra represents our blind mind. He is the blind king ruling this. He represents our blind mind. Our mind is blind. It has moha, it has maya, it cannot understand anything. Now, when I'm using the word mind, it's in the sense of the word manas in Sanskrit. So we have a mind. What is our mind? Our emotions, love, anger, greed, hate, jealousy, our impulses, our whims and fancies. All this is our manas, man in Sanskrit, in Hindi. Besides this, we have a buddhi. Our buddhi is our intellect, our discrimination. In life, I have to follow my buddhi. Whenever I perform an action, my buddhi must decide that action, not my man. If I keep functioning on the mind, I create more and more desires and make myself more and more unhappy. But when I function on my intellect, I do what is right, what is appropriate. So all of my life is this battle in my choices. When I go to the mall, my mind says, I need a new iPhone. The intellect says, no, we don't really need it right now. If I go to the dining table, my mind says, oh wow, gulab jamun, I need 4-5. The intellect says, sorry, not this time, maybe another time. So the mind all the time is making demands on us. And if we follow this mind blindly, we get into all sorts of troubles. We get into financial troubles because we make expenses we are not capable of doing. We get into health problems. Like, for instance, you offer a diabetic a sweet. The mind in him says, I like sweets, give it to me. But the intellect in him says, no, this is not for you. And you know what will happen if he follows the mind and what will happen if he follows the intellect. So there's this battle between these fellows going on in our minds. Now, the mind doesn't understand anything. It only understands pleasure and displeasure. So if I eat the sweet, I'm happy, that's great. I went to a party, I'm happy, that's great. It could even be going to the temple. I went to the temple, I'm happy, that's great. It only understands pleasure and displeasure. When things happen according to the mind, it is happy. When things do not happen according to the mind, it is miserable and unhappy. Right? The buddhi understands right and wrong. It is able to look into the distance and say, if I do this now, this will happen tomorrow. The mind is not capable of that. Discrimination alone tells us that. So, when our personality is led by the blind mind, we create the war of Kurukshetra. This blind mind, carried away with its emotions, does not know right from wrong. When this blind mind gets married to the intellect, Dhritarashtra was married to Gandhari. And when they got married, Gandhari voluntarily put a patch around her eyes. Right? When the mind and intellect get married, the mind is blind. The intellect can see. But when the intellect goes and gets married to the blind mind, it also loses its capacity to see. This combination of the blind mind and the blinded intellect gives us 100 Kauravas. These 100 Kauravas are constantly at battle with the 5 Pandavas. The negative things in us are always greater in number. The positive things in us are always lesser in number. So you would think this is a no-brainer. The bad guy has to win because there's so many more of them. But that's not really what happens. What happens in the war is the Pandavas will win. Not because they are more, not because they are stronger, but because of their association with Krishna. So how do you get out of this problem? What is Krishna? Krishna means dark. The word means dark. What in our personality is unknown to us? We know our bodies. We know our minds, means our emotions, our likes and dislikes, our impulses. We know that. We know our intellect. We know our reason, our discrimination, our judgment. We understand this. But we do not know what is that thing in us that gives us consciousness. What is that life-giving principle? What is that thing in us because of which we can do whatever we do? We don't know this thing. Vedanta calls it Atman, translated into English as the self. What is that self? I do not know. That is the transcendental reality, the life-giving principle, the God principle within each one of us. This is dark to me. Dark meaning unknown to me. Do not know this. This life-giving principle in me is like electricity in a gadget. A fan gives cool air. A heater gives hot air. A bulb gives light. The washing machine washes clothes. The mixer grinds our food. Every electrical gadget functions differently, but the electricity in all is exactly the same. Why does every gadget function differently in spite of the fact that the electricity is the same? Every gadget functions differently because the equipment is different. Similarly, you and I and everyone else, the saint and the sinner, our equipments are different. But the self in it is all exactly the same, whole and pure and perfect. Every one of us. That self, whether it's a sinner or a saint, whether you are at your best or whether you're at your worst, the only reason you can do whatever you do is because of the power of the self. And yet, God does not interfere with what we do. Without the power of God, we can do nothing. But what we do is not determined by Him. Similarly, just like without electricity, a gadget can do nothing. If you go and buy a bulb in a store, it doesn't give you light, does it? It has to be connected to electricity. Only then will it give you light. So without the electricity, the bulb cannot give light, the washing machine cannot wash clothes, the heater cannot give heat. And yet whatever they do has got nothing to do with electricity. God functions like that. You know, you must have heard. Bhagwan ki ichha ke bina ek patta nahi hilta. It's like saying electricity ke ichha ke bina ek gadget nahi chalegi. Without the power of electricity, nothing is going to move. Similarly, you and I and anyone else, whether it's a mosquito or a cockroach or you or me or anyone, without the power of the self, nothing moves. And yet the self does not determine what we do. That choice is ours. I can function on my mind or I can function on my intellect. I am making the choice, but the power comes from him. Now, this self within us is dark and unknown. And therefore, the Mahabharata refers to it as Krishna. When the good side of our personality associates with the self in us, that means in our life, our goal is moksha or enlightenment or self-purification or self-development. When it associates, when the good qualities in us associate with the higher, the good qualities will win the Mahabharata war. You could have a great quality, but if it is not associated with the self, that quality will prove futile. Ravana was a great Pandit. So what use did that do to him? How was his life benefited by it? You could have the best qualities, but if they are not associated with the higher ideal, with the higher self, they will prove futile. And that is what is shown by Karna. Karna was full of brilliant qualities. He was so good. But those qualities were not associated with goodness, with the higher, with God. And therefore, he will have to die in the Mahabharata. So, when the blind mind is married to the blinded intellect, you have 100 Kauravas. And there are so many of them, you think they will definitely win. Sometimes, in our spiritual path, we'll say, oh my God, I tried to control this, I tried to do that, but it's not happening. You feel that, oh my God, the pressure is too much. But the 5 Pandavas will win because of their association with the higher self, with Krishna. Not because he's going to do anything. Remember, he's only driving the chariot. He's not participating in the war. In fact, if you know the story, the story goes that Krishna was sleeping and both Arjuna as well as Duryodhana went to him and asked for his help. So he said, look, you both are equally dear to me. I will not participate in this war, but I would like to help you both because the enlivening principle is helpful to all, right? Whether you're going to do a negative act or a positive act, it is all based on the same enlivening principle. But I will give you a choice, he says. One can have me unarmed, and the other one can have my army. Since I saw you first, Arjuna, you choose. And Arjuna, as you know, chose unarmed Krishna, and Duryodhana got the entire army. The whole Yadavai army went into Duryodhana. You're all familiar with this story, right? Give me a thumbs up, show some reaction so that I know that you're all
Yes,
familiar.
yes.
Okay, if anyone is not familiar and I'm just going too fast or something, please let me know. Thank you. Okay, anyone is having a problem with anything, please let me know. We can always do that bit again. Okay, so he goes, both of them have gone to the sleeping Krishna. Krishna gives them the choice. You want my army or you want me? The negative in us always wants all the power of materiality. The positive in us understands that the only strength lies in the higher. But the higher is not going to help you. That you have to do yourself. Arjuna has to fight the war himself. He can't say, okay, now that Krishna's on my side, I'm going to win. No, he has to fight the war himself. Because it will not help you. But you can help yourself by associating with this higher power. And of course, you know how the war goes after that. In fact, the whole point of the war is to show us how our own personality is functioning. Now, there's just so much in it, right? So we obviously can't do everything today, but we will try to do some part of it. Now, Arjuna goes to war. And he tells Krishna, drive me in front between the two armies. Senayor Rubhayor Madhye. Drive me between the two armies that I may see. And Krishna, these are the first words of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. In the text itself, in chapter 1, is the first thing Krishna says. Behold the Kurus. It's a very, very allegorically significant thing. Krishna drives the chariot between the two armies. Remember what these two armies are? One is the massive army of the Kauravas, and one is the small army of the Pandavas. There are 18 Akshaunis, battalions totally, on the field that day, 11 of which are the Kauravas. So a very small army the Pandavas had. But he's driven between the two armies. This is showing us the spiritual path starts with being objective in life. In my mind, there are good desires and there are bad desires. When I function on either good desires or bad desires, I will create more desires. But when I get away from this good and bad desires and come to the center, I become objective. I start doing what is known as my duty. It is not about good and bad, but about appropriate and inappropriate. For instance, suppose you now decide to take up the study of the Bhagavad Gita and you start attending a class. As you know, we have online classes, but suppose you decide to do that. And the class, let us say, is every Sunday morning. Then somewhere else, somebody is doing an Upanishadic class. Now, Upanishads are higher than the Gita. Yes, okay. But and Upanishads are great things to learn. Yes, okay. But since you have made a commitment to study the Gita, you have to go with that. Or you can leave it completely and go to the Upanishads and study that. It is about doing the right thing, not good things. There is Bahu Shakha Hanantascha. It is many branched and infinite. You could do so many things, but your life will be determined by what you do choose to do. See, Sachin Tendulkar doesn't become Sachin Tendulkar because one day he goes to play cricket, one day he plays football, one day he plays badminton, right? So does it mean all the others are bad? No. He has to choose what he's doing and just go there. That is the way to be an achiever in this world. Otherwise, jack of all trades. So this is just one example. It is whether you're doing your education or you're doing your work or you're any part of it. You have to make this commitment to something. As spiritual sadhaks, we make our commitment to moksha or self-development or self-realization, whatever is the highest we can think. And then we perform all actions that take us there. We can't do everything. We cannot now start an orphanage also, start an old age home also. Whatever we commit to, have to do that. That is known as objectivity. Senayor Rudayor Madhye. Senayaha, two senas. Senayoho, two senas. Ubhayaha, two. Ubhaya means both. Madhye, between the two armies. So you're not doing good things, you're obviously not doing bad things. You're doing right and appropriate things. What is right for you may be entirely different from what is right for somebody else. But you have decided it's right for you, so you do that. And when they come between the two armies, these are the first words of Krishna. He says, behold the Kurus. When you become objective in life, when we can see that we are not flowing with the good and the bad desires, we begin to see, we ourselves begin to see what are the negativities in us that we have to battle. It's not easy to achieve anything in this world, whether it is a business thing or work or family relationships. It's not easy to be an achiever. You want a good marriage, let us say. Everybody wants a good marriage. Everybody wants good relationships. Then why don't we have them? Because we are not able to be objective towards our own faults. The problem is always somebody else's. No matter what happens, the problem is always because of somebody else. It's never because of me. So when I come between the two armies, I see myself for who I am. I see the good, I see the bad. I see it all. And when I'm able to see myself clearly and properly, I will be able to see other people clearly and properly. And when I do see other people clearly and properly, I can get along with anyone. We all are so disappointed with people.
Invented a machine the size of a suitcase that mimics the circulation
Somebody
power.
needs to mute themselves, Kavita. Thank you. We are so disappointed with people. Why are we so disappointed with people? Just think about it. Suppose I have a driver. My driver always comes late. Okay. Now every day I can get into a fight with him. Why did you come late? Why have you done? No. He is getting blood pressure. I am getting blood pressure. But if I know this person comes late and I want him at 10 o'clock, life is so simple when I've assessed this person is incapable of punctuality. If I have an important meeting to go, I tell him, please come at 9 a.m. if I want him at 10 a.m. He is also happy, I'm also happy. The moment we know ourselves, we can understand other people. When we understand other people, we assess them properly. Our expectations towards them are geared properly. Nobody disappoints us. So whenever we are disappointed, we have to understand, I have not been objective enough to be able to assess this person properly. Because everybody lives their own life, right? A tiger is a tiger, a tortoise is a tortoise, a rose is a rose. You cannot say, why is the tortoise not running as fast as the deer? You cannot say, why is the tiger not as fragrant as the rose? You'd never do it with other creatures. But with humans beings, we say, how can he not be punctual? How can he not be clean? How can he not? Hey, Baba, pigs are not clean. Once you recognize he's a pig, why are you asking him to be clean? Can't be done. I said, do you ever tell a creeper, why don't you stand by yourself? Which will tell a human being, why are you depending on me? Stand by yourself. If it's a creeper, how will it stand by itself? So when we become objective, we understand ourselves, we understand what's wrong with us. We also equally understand everybody else. So he says, come between the two armies and behold the Kurus. See the Kurus means see your own negativities. And if you say, no, I'm not interested in the spiritual path, I'm not interested in doing all of this, then you know what happens to us? We're not willing to work on ourselves. Then what happens to us is exactly what happened to Arjuna. Arjuna was the greatest warrior of his time. He has the great Lord Shiva and he, the Lord of destruction himself, had a battle and there was no winner. Can you believe this was his capacity? And yet when he comes to the most crucial battle of his life, which he himself has been planning for 13 years and longing to go to battle, he comes to that and collapses. His mouth goes dry, he says, I'm going through horripilations. He simply collapses on the battlefield. The great warrior Arjuna. And Krishna looks at him and says, what are you doing? Kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupastitam? How on earth? Okay, that's a liberal translation, okay? He didn't actually say how on earth. But how is it possible that you have come to this state? How is it possible? This great warrior, how do you collapse like this? And isn't that our story too? When a most crucial thing comes, we collapse. The student goes to the exam and is not able to write. The business person goes for negotiation, is not able to do that. I mean, not able to means not as good as they're capable of. You go in front of your spouse, you're not able to handle the relationship. So every time, when the time comes, we collapse. We're all great philosophers when the problem is somebody else's. When it's our turn, we are gone. So Krishna says to him, Anarya Jushtam Swargyam Kirtikaram Arjuna. This behavior is anarya. Anarya means it's not worthy of an Aryan. Aryan means a noble person. Our tradition is that we didn't call ourselves Hindus or Indians. You know what we called ourselves? We called ourselves Aryas. Or we called ourselves Bharatiya. That's another way we refer to ourselves. Bharatiya means Bha means light. Rati means to revel. So we were the people who reveled in the light of consciousness, reveled in spirituality, reveled in the higher truths of life. And therefore we were the cradle of spirituality and still are for this world today. So these are anarya. Anarya, it's not befitting an Arya, because an Arya understands that the purpose of life is to realize the self, is to achieve enlightenment. What is this behavior? You're falling and collapsing and not doing what you should be doing. It will not give you spiritual progress. It will not give you that spiritual goal. Anarya Jushtam, Aswargyam. It will not give you Swarga. Swarga refers to heaven, refers to future pleasures. You will not be happy in the future if you behave so badly. Anarya Jushtam, Aswargyam, Akirtikaram Arjuna. It will not give you kirti, it will not give you fame today. Your wrong behavior will take away present happiness, future happiness, and permanent happiness. So get up and do what you need to do. Because in that correct action, known as duty, will you be able to be happy today, tomorrow, and forever. So basically, that's what the Gita talks about. Learning to do the right action so that eventually we find the Krishna within ourselves. So that's it from me for now. If you have any questions, I'll take them up. I hope it was simplified enough. And I hope you can see that it's relevance to our daily life. It's not just something in the air that we chant or something, but it's something we learn from and let it be the torch of our lives. So if you have any questions, happy to take them.
Thank you, Dr. Janaki. Anyone, feel free to ask any questions you might have, not necessarily just from the lecture that you listen to, but anything from the Gita.
Hari Om. You say that when you marry to Buddhi, married to intellect, married to Buddhi.
Intellect married to mind.
Intellect married to mind, of course, yes. Intellect married to mind, then it's always this, we having an issue. But how you keep the God association all the times? How, what we can do to feel it, the God is always with us. what we should do?
We have to take this step by step. We cannot be thinking of God all the time suddenly after having been thinking of something else. So we have to try our best to think of something higher, greater, nobler than where we are. When we do this, our lower desires wane away. And then slowly you keep raising until we are able to maintain the thought of self-realization all the time. We can't jump, you see, we can't become a Krishna overnight. We have to go step by step. So you study, you reflect, you think, you do your karma yoga. Karma yoga means volunteer work. You do your bhakti yoga, which means your devotional, whatever practices you have, and do your jnana yoga, such as what we are doing here. And slowly, step by step, we go up the ladder. We cannot do it right now. It's not possible. But what we can do is keep some higher thought in mind. But, as far as our subject is concerned, the highest is self-realization. If you feel that's too much, come down to self-development. If you feel that's too much, then come down to any higher idea. And if you feel that is too much, then I don't know what to say. So anything higher you would like to work for. Okay? Step by step, we progress.
I have a question as well regarding, you had mentioned about the mind and the intellect when we first started the call. And I guess I'm struggling with how to strengthen that intellect to get control over the mind. Like, what are some things we can all do to strengthen that intellect?
The intellect is strengthened by use. It's a muscle like any other. Right? So the more you use it, the more you strengthen it. Now the question is, what do we mean by using it? It means two things. First and foremost, it means that every single morning we get up and we study Vedanta. Even if it is for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is. Studying Vedanta means 20% listening, 80% thinking. Because what strengthens is not reading. If reading and studying strengthened our intellects, then we would all be great sages and saints. So we collect a lot of information, most of which is just a burden on our heads. So what we need to do is reduce taking in information and think about that information more and more and more. Reflect upon it in the early hours. I hate to tell you the time to do this is between 4 and 6 a.m. Most people hate me for saying that, but ab main kya bolu? I mean, the fact is, your intellect is at its sharpest between 4 and 6 a.m. If you can't come between 4 and 6, come as close as possible with the hope of eventually reaching somewhere here. So the nature of life is in the beginning of the day. The most sattvic aspect of yours comes up. When the sun rises, the rajasic aspect comes up. Rajasic means active aspect. And as the sun sets, then the tamasic thing starts. So you'll see, largely you'll see this is true. Pure things are done in the morning. Even if you're a PhD in being an alcoholic, you will not drink between 4 and 6. Right? Because at that time you don't want to eat, you don't want to drink. You're contemplative by nature. Then when the sun rises, everybody gets into action. They start bristling with activity. And at night, all the tamasic activities start. So, even if they want to have a drink, they say, let's have a sundowner. There's a natural inclination towards it. So this is natural for human beings. So we should use that early morning period to increase the sattva in us by studying. It's a great time outside and your intellect is at its peak at that time. So it's a great time to study. The sattva can be used to grow the sattva. So the first way and most important way of developing the intellect is study. If you ask me what to study, then there are plenty of books. There is Vedanta Treatise by Swami Parthasarathy, which you might want to study. There is, of course, the Bhagavad Gita. If you have a good commentary or a good teacher, you can study that. You can come to our online classes and learn it, and then they're online live classes, so you can learn it. If the timing doesn't suit you, then you can do self-paced courses. There are various ways of getting the information, but the information won't help unless it is backed up by the reflection. So that's the first way. And second one is, in the business of living, just pause 1 second before you do something. Just ask yourself, whatever I'm about to do, is it going to give me what I want? Suppose you walk into your house one day and your son, who has his exams tomorrow, is just staring at a screen, and you get really angry, and we're working so hard for you, and this is how you're wasting your time, and you will blow up. So 1 second before you blow up, just ask yourself this question: by my screaming at my son now, will he start studying? If my answer is yes, by all means scream. If my answer is no, try another method, because your goal is to get him to study. Right? So 1 second pause and think before we are about to do something. So if we do these two things, we are well on our way for the development of the intellect.
Thank you.
How do we
Can I come in?
how do we
Sorry.
enroll for the online classes?
There's no enrollment, just come.
Okay. So is there like I mean, we have to just let you know that we want to join the online Vedanta classes, or
Yeah, I mean, if you go to our website, there's a telephone number.
okay,
The website is Vedanta Wisdom,
okay,
and you go to that, send a message to that number saying, please enroll me into the class. I mean, not enroll me, please add me to the WhatsApp group for the class.
okay, okay.
And then Bharat Lalwani, who runs that, will add you to it, and then every time there's a class, you will get the
Information. Okay. Thank you so much. It was so lovely to listen to you. In fact, the what you mentioned between 4 to 6 a.m., I practice heartfulness meditation, and I'm one of the heartfulness trainers, meditation trainers. And our Guru Kamlesh Patel, Daji, he always mentions that the best time to meditate is also between 4 to 6 in the morning. So it, matches so closely with what we've been hearing. So it's lovely to listen to that. Thank you so much.
Mr. Kasotia, you had something?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I also agree that the Brahma Muhurat, what we call it, 4 to 6, is the time when the consciousness speaks to us. Many times I have realized that. So many things that is there in your mind, and suddenly you get some solution. And that solution comes between that 4 and 6.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, Now my question was, till now what we have understood, that I have a right to choose. But many a times it happens that we are made to choose. That is our gunas or our DNA, takes us to a direction where I may or may not like to at that point of time. At the hindsight, I can think that yes, I should have done this or that. But at that point of time, I instinctively go in that direction. And that comes from my within, through my guna or DNA, what we call it in modern science. So how to handle that? That's a very important part.
Yes, Arjuna had the same question for Krishna. He says, why do I commit sin knowing fully well and not wanting to? So Krishna answers, Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhavaha. From rajogun, from that active principle, kama desire, and anger, which is the other side of desire. What is this? A desire means a thought in your mind which is out of your control. When the world does not cater to this thought, when there's an interruption in that thought, we experience what is known as anger. So this desire being out of control is what he refers to as the Rajogun. So if it's out of control, you have only one thing to control it, which is your intellect. Now, the problem is that we have fed our mind so much, we have fed those desires so much. It is a massive raging river. Now we are trying to put a dam on it. वो थोड़ा मुश्किल हो रहा है. So if you strengthen the intellect, slowly, 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 this river is going to be dammed. It's not going to happen overnight, but the only thing we do have to control it is the intellect, and we have to work to strengthen it. While we are not yet strengthened it, the easy way of dealing with it is at least keep away from that object. Let us say, for instance, there's one person who irritates you a lot, and the moment you go in front of him, you start screaming and abusing. Then minimum you do is at least keep a little away from that person, because this is the story in the Ramayana where Ram stands behind the tree and shoots Vali. You're familiar with this story, right? He stands behind the tree and shoots Vali, teaching us what? Vali represents lust and desire and all this sort of stuff. He was so powerful, it is said, that he would pick up Ravana with his 10 heads and hang him as a rattle for his children. That's how powerful he was. So now he had a boon that if anybody comes in front of him in battle, 50% of that person's strength will go to Vali. So even if Muhammad Ali comes in front of him, 50% of the strength will go to Vali. So there's no way you can beat him. Similarly, sometimes we have created such a big desire that we have no strength to handle it. So what do? You stand behind the tree and shoot. Avoid conducive environments for that desire to come forth. Suppose a person is an alcoholic and he wants to stop it, and every evening goes to the club and drink. So what's his first step? Stop going to the club, because having entered the club, you're definitely going to drink. So stop going there. So stand behind the tree and shoot. But the real answer is in development of the intellect. This is a common human thing. It's not you. It's like every one of us suffer this. And every one of us have to wage that battle.
Thank you, Janaki. Yesterday also I attended your session.
Is it?
It was just brilliant. It was just brilliant. Yeah, thank you.
So if nobody has a question, we conclude.
Yes, Janaki, thank you for coming. Sorry, Dr. Janaki. Yes, it was a wonderful session. Though it happened on a very short notice, I think it went well. Hopefully, we'll see you physically as well. We'll bring you to Detroit, Michigan someday soon. Maybe your next trip to the United States. But let us have these kind of sessions, as frequently as possible, so that the more interaction we have, the more we know. There's a wealth of knowledge that you have, and you can always share that with us. That you
everyone can come
think
to the
appropriately.
classes too.
Absolutely, we will share all that information to all our friends and devotees as well. So, all right, Jai Shri Krishna.
Thank you,
Jai Shri
Janaki
Ram.
ji. Excellent session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.